All right, it's 2:35. I think we'll get started. Welcome everybody to the ARPA Day Committee meeting for Tuesday, October 11th. As always, I need to read the
Do everything. So I don't know. Both Davids. And I think what's happening though is they're just getting stuck in their own little heads and they're pulling them farther away from.
Sure. I muted everybody,
Yeah.
so.
But Crow the other day just didn't say anything to me.
Muted everybody.
Punishing them by offering.
I just muted everyone, but I muted you too. But I muted you too, Keith, so I'm sorry if you can unmute yourself.
Okay, I got it now. All right, we're going to get started. I'm going to read the meeting of the ARPA Day Transformation Committee. Our public meetings as defined by the Connecticut Freedom of Information Act and should follow these guidelines. As this public meeting is held virtually, it will be recorded and made available to view on the DDS website. Committee members must make a good faith effort to state their name and title, if applicable, each time they speak during the meeting. If a committee member would like to speak, please raise your hand and one of the co-chairs will acknowledge you. There is no public comment portion to this meeting. Members of the public are able to join, watch, and listen only. Okay, next we have the approval of the 9/27 2022 minutes. Does anybody have any questions with the minutes? Seeing no questions, all in favor of approval of the 9/27 minutes, raise your hand. Anybody opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. The next on the agenda is a committee meeting time change. I've gotten some calls and there's a couple of members of our committee that are having difficulty with this time slot. And I wanted to throw it out to the committee of a potential change in our meeting times. Two different time slots have come up and I want to throw out both of them. But a Friday afternoon meeting, like 3 to 4:30, was one of the time slots that is available for these individuals, or a Monday time slot, but possibly a little later, like 4 to 5:30. I guess the first question is, anybody unable to make either one of those? And I'd like to have some comment on how able people are able to do something like that and change the meeting. Varian, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, Varian Salter, self-advocate coordinator for DDS in the North Region. Fridays I don't work, but so the Monday would work better.
Okay, thank you, Varian. I don't know the key level at DDS. Is a 4 to 5:30 on a Monday? Is that a something that everybody would be able to meet? Beth, go ahead.
Thanks, Beth Fisher, CUNY Employment Opportunities. That works for me. Maybe just a suggestion, Keith, if you wanted to take a vote, maybe poll the group. I know it's got to be hard to see everybody.
It is.
That might be an easier way to manage it. Just a thought.
And to do a poll through email, or is that what you're thinking?
Well, you could, or even just try. I mean, I don't know what percentage of your committee is here today. If you just wanted to do a show of hands for both time slots.
Well, I was just hoping if people can. I think we need to leave out Fridays right now. Is there anybody on the call right now that cannot do a Monday at from 4 until 5:30.
Keith, this is Jennifer from UCP of Eastern Connecticut. I'm available most Mondays, but the fourth Monday of the month is my board meeting from 4 to 5:30. So I would not be able to make it on that particular Monday of the month.
Well, and I guess another question, does this committee comfortable with the every other week meeting slot? I mean, we don't have to meet every other week. We could meet every third Monday. We could meet different periods of time. It's not, doesn't have to be every other week. Robin, your hand is raised.
Well, I'm just thinking that maybe if we do like the first and third Mondays of the month or something like that, that would accommodate people who have set meetings the fourth Monday of the month or the second Monday of the month instead of every other week, because then it rotates. It goes from the first to
Yep.
the third to the second to the fourth, and that's hard for people's schedules.
I'm good with that. Just go ahead, Beth.
Yeah, Beth Fisher from King. So just when would you look to start this? October 31st or not until later in November, or just because the first Thursday in November is not until the 7th, so that's almost a month out.
Well, we had scheduled the 25th, I believe, correct?
October, okay, I'm just,
Of October, that's our next meeting? If
Oh,
we go
yes.
by the current schedule.
I do, yep, I do
Well,
have that.
Let's see. But that would mean we'd meet 2 weeks in a row. Well, no, the 25th, and then we'd start the 7th.
Oh,
We'd do
okay,
the 7th and the 21st, correct?
that would work.
So we could meet next week or the next scheduled meeting, current scheduled meeting on October 25th. That's a Tuesday. And then start the Monday schedule, the beginning of the month, the first and third Mondays. November, December, January. Again, saying that, is there anybody opposed to that change in schedule? Okay, seeing no hands, I think we're good to go with that. Thank you, everybody. I appreciate it. Next, we have Patricia Cymbala. She is going to give us a presentation today on assistive technology. And, I appreciate her coming on today and kind of leading us a lot of assistive technology devices in the coming about. And I think having this committee kind of view this would be important for us to see. So I'll give it to you, Patricia.
So thank you for having me, Keith. And hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm going to share my screen. Do you see my screen, Keith?
No, it's black.
Okay. Just gave me a second to be able to let you share. So let me go. Gives me the whole list.
All right, now
Okay.
it's up.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Get rid of this. Okay. Hello, everyone. Assistive technology. This definition varies in different states and in different programs, but it pretty much sticks to this definition here. So any item, piece of equipment, software program, or product system used to increase, maintain, and improve the functional capabilities of persons with disabilities. Assistive technology is usually very person-centered, created specifically for one person. It can be created from nothing to completely cater a person's needs, or it can be a product that is modified to cater a person's needs. So we're all familiar with the typewriter. The typewriter was actually a piece of assistive technology. Pellegrino Turri created the typewriter for his friend who was blind and couldn't write handwritten letters. And as we know, the typewriter has now morphed into the computer keyboard. So now everyone uses it. The potato peeler, fruit peeler, vegetable peeler, that was has been in existence forever. But Sam Farber realized that his wife, who had arthritis, was having trouble peeling. So what he did was he made the handle thicker. And some of you may even have this in your house. And researching this, I realized I had it in my house. So he developed an entire line, actually, soup spoons, serving spoons, everything. So it's just easier to have a grip on them. But what happens is these two, even though one was modified and one was created for a person, we usually find that they are usually adaptive to everyone in society. And when that happens, when the design is accessible to everyone in society, it basically follows the principles of universal design. One of the most familiar ones that we have is the curve, the cut curve. The cut curve is so popular with a universal design that when another product is so recognized as being accessible to everyone in society, it's called the curve effect. It'll have the curve effect. So AT devices and environmental modifications recommended from an AT evaluation. Okay, AT evaluations are very, very person-centered. It is extremely important that when doing an evaluation, the evaluator should always focus on all of the aspects of the user's capabilities and needs and do everything they can to communicate directly with the individual. There is a process to get an evaluation done, though, in DDS. I'm going to show you some examples of that and some examples of some different products that we have here on the top, these pictures here. You would hang shirts on the top picture here, and then you would pull it down. If you had mobility problems with your arms, you'd pull it down, it forms like a stand, and then you could pull down your dress or shirts on this rack and then move it back up. Over here, if you were in a wheelchair where you see the hardwood floor, when you go from one room to another, it is best if those divisions are sunken into the floor so that people don't trip on them or a wheelchair can go over it. This is very common in elderly homes so that they don't trip. Another thing is that a lot of people don't think of is the pattern of the floor. When you go from one pattern to the other, checkered patterns can be very confusing and can cause people to fall. But having a difference, just having a difference in patterns helps people. So moving over to the actual evaluation. So a case manager would complete a screening tool, and the screening tool will determine whether or not an AT assessment is necessary. And if it's realized that it is necessary, and about that an evaluation would need to be done, they would then submit for, they would request funding. A provider would be selected to complete the evaluation, and when the evaluation is complete, a report will be provided. The team reviews the report and determines what AT and training may be necessary. The report will have information on not only what AT is being recommended, but also why it is recommended. Was there another AT used previously? Is it still being used? And if not, why? Then the team would create an action plan to make sure everyone is familiar with the AT. The team works on the AT action plan as well as produce measurable goals that AT will help achieve. The measurable goals, AT services service delivery process requires collaboration and is continuous. So that action plan and when that evaluation is created, that's not the end of it. Throughout the life of the person, it'll always be added to. It's a living, breathing document. It's important to see it that way. Without having the right evaluation, you tend to see product abandonment because it's very important to match the person to the right technology. AT and employment. So here are some examples of assistive technology that can be used with employment. If people have dexterity problems with their hands, these are tools that can be used on the bottom row here. Here are tools that can be used so that they don't cut themselves and so that they can chop if they work in a kitchen type setting, a prep cook. This wheelchair is very interesting. I have never seen it in person, but I have seen pictures of auto mechanics, people who are in wheelchairs, where it props them upward and they can work underneath the car. And as you can see, you can also do hair cutting. There's many different professions and there's many different tools. These are just two professions here, but there are many different professions. If you work in an office, there are many different tools that can be used. Something as simple as a grip on a pen to help you hold the pen while you're writing. Speech detect technology, so that you're not typing if you have dexterity problems. Assistive technology across the lifespan. It really is in every aspect of our lives. Growing up, you know, the technology wasn't there myself, being the age I'm at, but my children have seen technology from day one to now and use it fully, and they're in their early 20s, 19 and 21, and they just live in a world of technology. AT can help people at any age in all aspects of their lives. Assistive technology can help at home, at work, and in the community. It can help children to maintain optimal development, promote inclusion, assist adults in being successfully employed, enhance communication, increase independence, assist individuals to live self-determined lives. I'm sure each of you can think of how technology is so beneficial in your own lives and how many different aspects of your lives you rely on that technology. Enabling technology. Sometimes people ask me, well, what's the difference between enabling technology and assistive technology? Think of enabling technology as an umbrella over assistive technology and remote supports and other technologies. It's all encompassing. Right now, we are doing the Arpa initiatives, as you know, because you're on this call, the American Rescue Plan Act. And I'm lead for the assistive technology. So let me tell you how. So in coming up with the different initiatives, there was a reasoning for coming up with the different initiatives. And one was to close the digital divide. The digital divide is the gap between those who have access to technology, the internet, and digital literacy training, and those who do not. And there is a severe gap, there is a huge gap with individuals with intellectual disabilities. Okay. Other reasoning to come up with the initiatives that we did was to avoid product abandonment. Huge waste of money in product abandonment. If you don't fit the right person, and the poor person goes without the needed device that they need. So matching that person to the right technology, extremely important. And it's also very cost effective to have that accessibility. To match that person can be very, very cost effective. Something, usually when there's product abandonment, it'll sit on a shelf in a closet and no one uses it, and that doesn't help anyone. So the right technology for the need to optimize independence. What were the goals and objectives? The goals and objectives to come up with the different initiatives we'll be talking about was to create an educated and innovative community of stakeholders, develop and follow through to achieve desired outcomes, and sustainability. Sustainability is extremely important, and a lot of the initiatives, my main interest is that they're going to keep going, and partnering with different agencies can make that happen. This ARPA fund is a huge, it's a once in a lifetime thing. It's a huge benefit. So it's important not just to, and I don't like to say the word spend, I like to say the word invest. It's important to invest it and see it being used throughout the future. So ARPA initiative, the focus areas and the stakeholders. Who are the stakeholders? Individuals, families, providers, DDS. The main focus areas were education. Knowledge really is everything. What is AT and how is it going to play a part in your life, in the lives of others? How can it improve your life? Evaluations. Focusing on evaluations. identifying AT and remote support needs. And when done properly, be very successful. AT device expansion. Exposure and access to tools for societal digital integration. Extremely, extremely important. Closing that digital divide. Extremely important. As I mentioned, today in society, you cannot, when COVID was at its height, you could not get a COVID test unless you had access to the internet and you booked your appointment at CVS or wherever you were going online. There's so many things that you can't do unless you go online. So it's very important that education and expansion of device accessibility is done. Employment opportunities. There's so many endless opportunities right now with the technology that's happening right now. We have virtual reality that has a lot of promising future opportunities and training for individuals with intellectual disabilities and people in general. It really is going to, there's some really fascinating things going on with virtual reality right now. So remote supports, independence. This is something we've been working on, and Elisa Velardo, our deputy commissioner, she'll be having a forum on that. She has them at the fourth Tuesday of every month, and she'll be having a forum on remote supports in December, I believe. So stay tuned to that as well. Innovation, the future. Innovation is really important. With being able to invest this money in the future of individuals and having individuals be at a point once where they can be ahead of technology is an amazing place to be instead of always behind. So that is also a very important focus area. So these are the different initiatives that are in play. Two of which we have already done have been 2 NOOs that we did. The 2 NOOs benefited quite a few people, and quite a bit of money was spent on a lot of different assistive technology. There will be another NOO going out, and everyone will be made aware of when that will be. One that we're rolling out right now is AT&Me. So it's a peer-to-peer learning and teaching experience. The curriculum has been developed by the self-advocate coordinators of the North Region, and basically it is a PowerPoint, and in the corner of the PowerPoint, you have each of the self-advocate coordinators explaining each of the slides of the PowerPoint, and it will teach individuals how to use different technologies. Each individual will receive, after taking the course, they will receive a backpack, and within the backpack, there'll be a headset, a Chromebook, a cell phone, a card for use of the cell phone, a hotspot, and a computer bag in which everything will be in. In order to receive the bag, they just have to agree to teach 2 other people. That's where the peer-to-peer training goes. And the 2 other people then will also receive bags full of this technology. And this is a course that was actually done in Germany and had huge success. And I'm really looking forward to this because I really see this as an opportunity in closing the gap and doing a lot of good for a lot of people. So as I mentioned, virtual reality, different AT devices and awareness, social and skill development for training. Have a lot of things going on with that. One of the ideas is for travel as well. With virtual reality, they've been doing this in Tennessee where they've mapped out the roads and everything, and people can put on their virtual reality headset and they can go to the bus, see how to pay the ticket for the bus, get on the bus, take the bus around town. So it shows you the route before you do it. So a lot of these that are in these different categories can actually fit into many columns. Remote supports is something we're putting a lot of time and effort into, and innovation is extremely important. Getting some of the universities to do some research studies and finding cost-effective ways for the technology and resolving some of the DSP shortages as well. There's just a lot going on. It's a really exciting time. I get really excited when I talk about this stuff. I geek out completely, and I just love it. it's a beautiful time right now. It really, really is. Going back to the AT and me, be on the lookout for that, please. And if you know of anyone who would be a good candidate for that, that would be great. How am I doing on time there, Keith?
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. All right. So staff AT evaluation discussion. Within DDS, we plan on training 10 people from each region on how to do evaluations, so that in-house we can start to recognize AT needs. The respite homes, we will be expanding the AT devices within the respite homes throughout the state, and also creating demo centers there so that people can go and see the technology that's there and actually have firsthand on how to use it, how it's used, what it is. So looking at plans to encourage and enhance employment through the use of virtual reality. That's a big one that we're going to be working on soon. Go back. And for providers, soon we'll be sending out a free shift admin training. It'll be shift is a training that we did inside of DDS, and it taught DDS staff about enabling technology. And there's also a module on remote supports. It is a great training. I enjoyed it very much so. So we're offering it to providers so that they will have one ETIS, which is enabling technology integration services. And then there's an ET enabling technology, two ETs. So two ETs that's more for staff. ETIS would be management, and leadership would be the heads of the agencies. All programs, a lot of the information intertwines throughout all of them. But it's going to be a good program. So that should be going out soon as well. Go back to anything. And let's see. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to call me about assistive technology or to email me, and I'll be glad to answer your questions.
Okay, we have one question. This is Keith Lavalette, DDS. Allie?
Hi, Allie Smale, Program Director for NEBA. Hi, Patricia. Thank you so much for the information today. Greatly appreciate that. I am a techie as well and enjoy enabling tech. I've actually already taken the shift trainings, and I can tell you they are excellent. So if anybody has that opportunity, please take that opportunity if you have it. Quick question, and I brought this up actually with Catherine earlier in some of our discussions. It would, and again, I'm new, so I'm still learning the system, but it does seem that in Connecticut, there's at least the typically only services that are done directly in person with the individual are billable. So work that is done on a person's behalf, it is not billable. And what I know about enabling tech when I've used it, is that oftentimes when you're setting up platforms, when you're setting up tools, it takes an incredible amount of time and effort to do that and do that well. And you made an excellent point about putting the right technology in people's hands, the right technology for the right person at the right time for the right, goal that you're trying to achieve. But typically there is back work to be done that, typically would not be done directly with the individual. Is there a plan in place statewide for how funders are going to be able to, or how providers are going to be able to manage that and be funded?
Give me an example of something.
So we use Life Sherpa a lot in NEBA. And so for instance, if I am setting up an interactive task list with timings and alerts, much of that work is done, probably when the individual is not receiving direct services. So you're building out that platform with pictures, with audio, with descriptors, with timing, and that could take hours that currently does not appear to be fundable. or billable in Connecticut. I
Um,
don't know if others have similar experience.
well, the evaluation is usually up to 10 hours. And you're saying time that goes over those 10 hours?
Well, to me, an evaluation isn't it's an evaluation, it's an assessment. It's to try and figure out where that person is and what technology they need. Once we figure out what technology they need, how does a provider bill for setting up the right technology?
I understand it, but within the 10 hours, in most cases, an evaluation and the setup can be done within those 10 hours. And it's a good amount that's being paid hourly. We're probably, one of the higher ones in the country, actually.
Yeah, I
So
don't have a
that,
problem with that. Let's take the work site. You can set it up for somebody who's initially learning a job, right? And you can probably do that with the 10 hours of the evaluation time that's set aside. But then what happens when they need different tools or when their jobs change?
you would then have to
Or
put
what-
in, for more hours to do more, continue the assessment or to change
That
it.
is billable. So that evaluation time does not have to be done directly with the individual. Some of that can be done on their behalf.
You know what, I'd like to refer to someone who can answer that question. I don't want to give you false information, so I don't want to guide you in the wrong way. So please,
No, I
if we can discuss this, I'm more than happy to give you that.
Yeah,
I mean,
this
I know
people-
things have to be ordered and you're not when I do an AT evaluation, usually there's equipment that needs to be purchased. Usually the case manager ends up purchasing the equipment, but if I myself had to put in the order, I do. But let me get more information for you for that. Yes,
Great.
Keith.
Thank you.
Thank you
Keith,
for bringing that up.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. I think this was either brought up in a previous day committee meeting or a advisory committee meeting. I'm not sure which, but I think we do need to figure out that and how that gets paid. Actually, Beth, I think it might have been you that discussed it earlier. So.
Beth Fisher from CUNA Employment. I did talk about unbillable services. It was not specific to technology, but I do
Okay.
think it's a theme throughout, DDS funding.
Okay. Keith Lavalette, DDS. Jennifer, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. Jennifer from UCP of Eastern Connecticut. In my experience with assistive technology evaluations, training, that does not necessarily have to be in person to be billable. It's like healthcare coordination in terms of the way that it's built. So it does, in my experience, has not needed to be in person in order to be billable.
Keith Lavalette, DDS, but Jennifer, just, I don't know the answer to this question. It's a set amount of hours you can bill. And once you reach those hours currently, you're done essentially. Is that correct?
As Patricia said, yes, it's maximum of 10 hours for all of it, whether it's assessment, training, or installation.
Okay. All right, we can work on that and get an answer for this committee.
Yeah, Jennifer, thank you, because there are situations where you just can't be in person. You have to order the parts or you have to do certain things. So, there's so many different aspects of assistive technology and the process in which to actually get the product and put it in the hands of the individual. So.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Jennifer, your hand is still raised. Do you have another question?
My apologies.
No, no problem.
No other questions. Thank you.
Does anybody have any other questions for Patricia? Seeing no hands, thank you, Patricia. I appreciate you coming on today, and you're welcome to stay on and listen if you like.
Thank you for the questions, and please feel free to call or email me at any time. And if I don't know the answer, I'll tell you I don't know the answer, but I will get the answer for you. Okay. Thank you very much for having me.
All right, Keith Lavalette, DDS. The next item on the agenda is, and this is an item that probably will stay on for a little while. A discussion from committee members on items identified by families or individuals that may interfere with moving to an alternative day setting. Again, why money is a main factor, what other issues would get in the way? Anybody have any items to discuss with that? Okay, I know we talked about a lot last time. I didn't want to. Oh, we do have a hand raised. Beth?
Beth Fisher from Hune. Yeah, I don't have anything new to add, but my question is, will we be going back to some of those issues identified and then doing some brainstorming around, problem solving, or are we just keeping a list?
Keith Lavalette, DDS. We're keeping a list at this point. My hope is when Deloitte, and if there's communication stuff that we need to discuss, we'll have that list to discuss with them as we move forward. We could discuss it all we want, and then when Deloitte comes on board and we have more discussions, it may change the process we're moving in. So I think it's important that we talk as a group and get this list together of issues and problems that we could have moving forward. But then I see us working with the Deloitte Consulting and trying to resolve all these issues.
Beth Fisher from Kuhn. So will they be coming into these groups eventually, or will they be separate meetings? How will that look?
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Deloitte did participate in the advisory committee meeting last time. We're working on the details still with them, and I do foresee them at some point in time working with us as needed. They presented to the advisory committee meeting. We're working on that right now, and then we'll be working with the other groups as we move along. Jennifer.
Unmute. Hi, this is Jennifer, UCP of Eastern Connecticut. I think maybe we could circle back to some of the ones that we brought up a few weeks ago on things that may interfere with moving from a day setting to an employment setting. Just as an example, the number of hours that a person is supported is not the full 30 hours that is given in a day setting. So for example, we have an individual that we support. He has a split budget, an IDV budget and a day budget. His day budget is 23 hours and his IDV budget is 4 hours. So there's a difference between, I'm sorry, it's 2 hours. It's 4 hours for us biweekly. So it is, he has several hours that are unsupported where there's no one at his home when he gets there, and there's no transportation available for him. So the challenge is bridging the gap between the new hours for IDV and to make up the 30 hours that the person used to have. So that there are multiple things here. One is there may not be anyone to take care of his safety issues in terms of being alone at home, and transportation during that time period. So those are 2 items. So transportation and safety at home. Another obstacle in particular for this person, but could be for a number of other individuals, is his personal care needs during those alone times. So there's personal care, which could be an obstacle to employment to begin with, and transportation and safety at home. So those are 3 barriers that I can think of that I think we discussed before, but just with this one particular person that we're supporting as an example.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Jennifer, just for my knowledge, for this particular individual, did you attempt to go through like Pratt to get the funding necessary, or did that not happen, or?
Well, it's my understanding that there is one budget. And with the outside of this ARPA initiative, there's no kind of one times for day program setting, right? So we have not gone back to address this. We are going back to the residential provider to remind them that the person cannot attend the program more than 23 hours a week.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. This has been brought up a couple of times in this committee. It's also been brought up a number of times in the advisory committee meeting that it is important that individuals who are transforming or moving into an employment situation, they may not have the full-time work or full-time employment or 30 hours of employment, and that we do need to look at how that is worked out. And it is in many of the committees as it's being discussed. So okay, let me go in order here. Robin?
Yes, I thank you. And I forgive me if this was discussed at the meeting I wasn't at last time, or if I missed the conversation, but I know for people who are currently not employed at all, and who want to move to maybe partial employment or full-time employment. And my question is, it's unlikely that those people have work skills or any skills that could help them move into employment. So can this money also be used to provide them with job training? And then what if it takes as long as the money, what if the money runs out before they actually get trained well enough to go into a job? And also that group is probably a group who needs like 24-hour supervision. So how would that work if there's not enough money for them then to be supervised at all times throughout the day?
If anybody, Keith Level at DDS, if anybody wants to add to this, but if an individual moves to, for example, of individual supported employment program, the staff spend time working with them on job skills, working with them on resume building, working with them on different parts of getting a job. And then if they do get the job, they spend some time working with them to make sure they're able to complete the job. What the issue though is, for example, if they work 10 hours a week or 2 days a week, and then their monies are used there, and then the other 3 days, they don't have a program. That is, I think, the most problematic part of what we are talking about.
Right. I just have one more comment. So this group is likely a group that might need group supported employment. Many of them will not be able to work independently. Is that, a factor? Is that being considered that this group might need that group supported employment that seems to have disappeared in order to get back into the job market?
By the group supported, Keith Lavalette, DDS, group supported employment disappearing. I know there's a number of agencies that still have it. It's just not as prevalent as it once was. And I think the idea here is if certain individuals move out of group supportive employment into more individuals employment, they'd work with them on those training skills.
What about the group that isn't in any group supported employment that needs to move into group supported employment because that's the only viable option? Unless they're going to be able to have a one-on-one for 40 hours a week. In other words, there's a group that can never be independent, can never be alone for various reasons. How will this program, how will they benefit from this program, I guess is my question.
Are you talking, for example, individuals in a DSO moving into a GSE? A group supportive employment situation? In the GSE program, they would have the staff available to do the proper training necessary. And if there's a group of 3, 4, 5, 6 people that are working a position or working a job, they'd be working with them as their full-time staff.
Okay, so really the dilemma then would be that this is a group that clearly would need to be covered for the entire 9 to 3 hours that they're currently covered. They just cannot be alone for a minute. So I guess that's where I just keep going back to that issue of there's not enough money to cover all of the hours that a lot of the people that are currently being serviced by DDS need. And I don't know how to get around that. Is that something that is going to be addressed, or I don't know how to move forward, I guess, from that without an answer to that. I can't wrap my head around how we move forward.
I guess I'm confused that, if they're moving. All right. Before I open my mouth again, I'm going to have Cynthia, she's raising her hand. I think she has something to add to this conversation. So go ahead, Cynthia.
Right. Well, everyday program is scheduled or should be scheduled, and a GSE would for 30 hours a week. That person would be given the money for services for 30 hours a week, and transportation to get back and forth from the program would be on top of that. So I'm not sure where you might be getting the idea that they won't have the money. If that is a group of people who won't be moving into the employment sector, as I think what you're saying, then they would have the funding to remain in a GSE program.
I'm sorry. I'm saying they do want to move into employment, but it will be group supported employment. Not right now, that group is currently in a community-based program, volunteering, here and there. So they would move into a group supported employment situation, but that would cost more than their current day program.
Not necessarily. Always the GSE and DSO rates were the same. Now that may be changing through this initiative. But my sense is there will be the funding to be able to maintain them in that group supported employment.
Okay, thank you.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Beth?
Hi, Beth Fisher from CUNY. Before I make my original comment, if I could maybe just comment on what Robin was talking about. We're an agency that does have a large group supported employment program. We've been very successful, and we've been very aggressive at moving people into independent placement from that program. However, That's a group I worry a lot about as the department moves forward in its planning, because, you know, the comment that GSE has disappeared, I understand that that's a perception, but I think where that perception comes from is that a lot of agencies have stopped doing the GSE programs because they're difficult to run. They're very cost ineffective as wages go up. If the special certificate from the U.S. Department of Labor goes away and those sub-minimum wages are not allowable anymore, I frankly don't know what's going to happen to all of those people. So I would just, you know, echo Robin's concerns that, you know, somebody really needs to be thinking about that piece as we're going through this as well. My original comment goes back to the example that Jennifer shared about her individual. You've heard me talk a lot about the need for more flexible DDS funding. And I think that situation is a good example where, you know, you've got, you know, such specific amount of hours for each program. But don't forget that, you know, we don't dictate the work schedules. It's the employers dictating the work schedules. And so if, you know, somebody is working 5 hours a week and then they're going to go to 10 hours one week and then down to 2 hours for a seasonal situation or what have you, you know, to have to go back to the team each and every time the employer changes the person's schedule, I get there's a little flexibility there, but in the grand scheme of things, this is cumbersome. And it's really, I think, going to be a barrier to people wanting to move forward with independent, you know, competitive jobs, which I think is everybody's goal here. So, you know, I think that, again, that's a barrier, is not having really truly flexible funding. Thank you.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Robin, is your hand raised again, or?
Oh, sorry, no, I'll take it down.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Okay, we're starting. Oh, Beth, go ahead.
Beth Fisher from Kuhn. Keith, I just want to make sure transportation is on that list of barriers, correct?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
Yes.
It's a big one.
Yes, it is. All right, we're starting to run a little late, but I want to get this next a discussion on the Selm Commission, and we have Trevor Rogers on how to assist and align with this committee. Trevor? You're on mute, Trevor.
Oh, there we go. Hi, everyone. Trevor Rogers, Transition Advisor with DDS. I'm here to quickly discuss Selm and what's been happening with our group, some of the recommendations we've made and where we're going, and how they can intertwine with this group. And I'm going to start with just a little bit of background. So Selm is the State Employment Leadership Network. They are a group that brings together different states all around employment first. So throughout the end of 2020, they did a report where they analyzed all of DDS's employment services. They talked to providers and they talked to different DDS staff, families, and individuals that we serve, and they generated a findings and observations report that was published in February of 2021. And it goes over some of the strengths that we have, but it also identified areas of weakness, and it was organized into 7 different sections, which you can see in green on the screen. So DDS created 7 different subcommittees to analyze and address the different sections of the report. And again, they're all specifically oriented towards employment. And I'm going to share this PowerPoint with everyone too. I did not put a link to the actual Selm report in here. I will put it on this page before I send it out. So you can click that link and send it. Beth said she can't see my screen. Can others see my screen?
Keith Lavalette, DDS. I could see it.
Okay. So I'm sorry, Beth. I promise I'll send out this PowerPoint after.
Thank you.
So like I said, I will also, I'm gonna link this actual Selm report because it is published on the DDS website and anybody can see it. But what we did to address the Selm report was we created these 7 different subcommittees and then we created an overarching steering committee. And the steering committee is made up of leadership from these different, from each of the different committees, as well as a few other representatives. And we solicited membership for this throughout the, I would say July, September, and October of 2021, so about a year ago. And we have members that are family members and individuals supported by DDS. We have provider staff, DDS staff, and provider staff and DDS staff across varying positions. So we have like DSPs, we also have CEOs. We have a varying range, and then we also have some advocacy groups as well. And our goal was to take the section of the report, analyze, investigate, and create recommendations for change based on the areas of weakness identified by the report. So I'm going to quickly review some of those areas. I'm going to show the recommendations that we made in the right at the beginning of the spring and summer. We do have a new round of recommendations that just was finished and they're in the commissioner's lap, and we should be getting feedback from them this week or the beginning of next week. And when I do, we will send that whole compiled report to this group because it's just going to build off of the information I'm going to share now. I did some color coding in this. If there is no color, if it's just black text, it means the idea is continuing through to the next round of recommendations and we've been developing goals about it. And just what I mean by that, this is the first group. Number 2 and number 3, both of those pieces we are working towards gathering more information and developing. You can see that number 1 is green. This is green because it's something that's actually already been put into effect. On October 1st, a memo went out through the operations center that changed a few different things. All of them were recommendations from this group. The first one was removing the maximum hours per week to according to the level of need score for individuals supported by ISE. So now what that means is there's no 5-hour cap on ISE. An individual will be able to utilize their day funding for ISE or a combination of ISE and other day supports up to their LON amount. And I can also attach the memo that this created, the memo that goes over this guidance to this as well, because that memo also clarifies number 1 up here. So the Financing and Contracting Methods Subcommittee made some recommendations based on the one-time employment incentives. The next round of recommendations have very specific line items of things that could happen to make real changes. And the first one was combining the rates for the one-time employment incentives so that there's not a separate rate for those who are in a GSE path and those that are in an ISE path. Those who know the one-time rate know there's a big like line down the middle. It's you get paid less if they're in a GSE and ISE, if they're in a GSE or IDV, I believe, and if they're in an ISE or an ISE and GSE combination, but with some component of ISE, they get paid more. It was $34 compared to $55. So our committee recommended that we combine this rate because it doesn't make sense to pay less for the GSE rate. In a sense, you're doing a little bit more work because that's a bit more of a transition from a GSE to an ISE. That was the first recommendation of the next round of recommendations, and it already went into effect. So that's some great news because hopefully some of the other pieces will start moving forward as they're on the commissioner's desk. But that was also addressed in the memo that went out. And just to be clear, I think I said it went out on October 1st and went out on September 29th, but these changes went into effect on October 1st. And again, I can send a link to that memo as well, but it's also on the DDS website where all the Operations Center memos are. Another group is training and technical assistance. The blue writing underneath that's in italics is guidance from the commissioner's office and deputy commissioner. So the group has been working to develop a training called Job Coaching 101 and an Employment Training 101. Now they're working with other groups, they're working with other states, with our selling representatives to look at other trainings that are already out there to see what we can do to better further fill some of the gaps in employment and job coaching training for DDS staff and for provider staff. One of the things that they did recommend and has already taken into effect is that the state of Connecticut purchase extra slots for the State Employment Leadership Network's e-learning training, which is called Supporting a Vision for Employment. This training has been offered to all case managers and transition advisor staff, and we've also been slowly offering it to other staff that come into contact with employment or like resource managers and above. The training is offered a few different times a year. It's online, asynchronous, but there are some time frames and quizzes and such you have to complete. I took the training. It's very great, eye-opening, and it's very innovative, solely focused on employment, assistive technology, and innovation. So that is something that's already in effect, and we actually have another round of it launching for our DDS staff to start attending, I believe, this month in October. The Interagency Collaboration Subcommittee, this subcommittee has been, has been folded into another subcommittee. We took a lot of the goals from this group. There was one more, they furthered a few more of these goals in the next round of recommendations that I said will be being released soon. But what we did was we folded a lot of these goals into the other committees because they overlapped with a lot of the work that we were doing. We also decided that it's very important to make sure that there's interagency collaboration among all of our groups. And some of these points were moved to various groups because certain groups like service and service innovations have been looking at the different service options, but these are things that we also have started working on, specifically around our transition related activities. We have a new employment and day services pathways brochure that went out that goes over the employment and day services for transition age youth. And we also decided that in folding this committee into other committees, we created a new subcommittee that is launching next month to focus on transportation. This subcommittee is bringing together various different groups. If you're interested in joining the subcommittee, I will put it out there that we are still soliciting membership. I was at the DDS North Region Regional Forum today, and I know that Deputy Commissioner Velardo has been advertising that we are looking for stakeholder representation for this transportation group because it is one of the first times we're going to bring all kinds of stakeholders together to talk about transportation. But I do just want to put out there again that I'm showing this to you because a lot of these ideas and recommendations are things that could either be taken on by this group or could be furthered by this group. There could be a lot of communications because we have similar goals of increasing employment services in the state. And so there are just a few more left. Service and Service Innovations is another subcommittee. As you can see, they're moving forward on developing a more clear space in simple universal language that everyone can understand for our DDS website to make sure that there's clarity among all stakeholders on our different services. They're also working on creating all kinds of educational materials and specifically looking at updating our website and removing old materials, specifically service definitions as well, to make sure there's no misinformation. I can actually tell you that we had a whole meeting about that today because we are working a lot on that as well in the background on some of the different communication pieces of how DDS is communicating to individuals and family members. Finally, we also have employment performance measurement, quality assurance, and program oversight. This group has been doing an exponential amount of work between the last quarter and this quarter, working with our different data groups within DDS and also reaching out to different places to see how the different data within our system can communicate together. I'm sure we all know that there are so many different ways we collect data within DDS or DOL. Even the US DOL, but a lot of them don't actually talk to each other at all. So that's one of the main things this group has been looking into. And there are some exciting recommendations coming out the next time. So hopefully next time we talk, we'll be able to further that conversation. And then the last group is leadership. This group started a little late because we wanted to make sure we really got leadership members involved because of some of the topics. I know like Sean Bannon, who's in this group, is in this group actually, but one of the things that we are already beginning to work on and we have published is, like I said, the Employment and Day Services Pathways brochure, which is a transition part of their transition welcome packet that they're working on. And they're also working on a few other projects like creating an employment network for families. And they're working on defining those next steps and what the process would be in their next rollout of recommendations. And then finally, creating all kinds of connections with like businesses and communities to alleviate some of that burden from our provider agencies and help out with networking and all that. So I know that was a very quick overview. Another round of recommendations, like I said, is with the commissioner and deputy commissioner. We actually just gave it to them less than a week ago. So what I have already talked to Deputy Commissioner Velardo about this, and she has said that when she sends it to us, she would like me to send it directly to Keith. We can share it with this group. And then if you'd like, next time I'm here, I can briefly talk about a few of the recommendations, or maybe we can take some time for the group to talk about the recommendations if we are able to distribute them among the group before. There are some very exciting things. Like I said, a few of the recommendations that were happening have already taken place, like the uniform ISE rates for the one times and getting rid of the ISE 5-hour cap. There was also just one other change, which was under the Strategic Goals and Operating Policy Subcommittee, which was that whenever possible, one-time authorizations are going to utilize ad hours to minimize the additional administrative burden and allow WebRes day billing in lieu of submitting actuals. So that was also on that memo as well. And again, I can include that with this PowerPoint, but I know that was a lot of information I just showed everyone, but this is a brief summary of where we are so far. And I hope it got some ideas flowing or something, because I know that there's a lot of big goals in here. A lot of things that require more input and more work. And so that's one of the reasons we wanted to come here, because we know that this group is specifically looking at increasing employment for the individuals that we serve. And so we wanted to show you some of these goals to see how they can mesh and connect with this group going forward. So I will, oh, Keith, I'll let you.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, are there any questions about anything I presented? I know I did present a lot of stuff, so I do understand. Beth?
Hi, Trevor. Beth Fisher from CUNY. Not a question, but I'm really happy to hear you talking about how your work's going to dovetail with this group, and I would certainly vote for you continuing to bring this to this group. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much, Trevor. I appreciate it. I think this is important work that, echoing Beth, will be very helpful to us moving forward. The next agenda item is hopefully we don't need to repeat some of the items, but a discussion on what families need more information and assurance about to move individuals into employment options. And I think today we've heard loud and clear that the 30-hour week is very important to providers, families, everybody. So are there other concerns? Are there other things you need assurance about that families might have spoken to either private providers about, case managers about? Is there anything families have that they're concerned about or need assurances about? I see Beth. Go ahead.
Beth Fisher from CUNY. I'm not sure if this has come up before, but one of the things that we hear from families is concern about any loss of Social Security entitlements and the impact of earned wages. I know we are hoping to do some seminars for some of our families around that, but I think, you know, engaging some benefits counselors who are certainly available to help would be important for families to understand that piece.
It's a good thought, Beth. Thank you very much. Keith Lavalette, DDS. Jennifer?
Jennifer Keatley, UCP Eastern Connecticut. Along the same lines of benefit counseling is travel, transportation, education on what options are available, and also perhaps, I don't know how to say, I guess a lot of the individuals that live in their family homes, some of the feedback that we get is that the families don't want them to take public transportation for safety purposes. You know, again, we don't choose the hours, the employer chooses the hours of work. So if someone is working an evening shift, they don't want them on the bus during the evening. So I would say travel, transportation training, and education around personal safety, maybe, in addition to just the actual access of the transportation.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Thank you, Jennifer. That's, again, much needed. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, I guess we'll get through this agenda. Discussion on assistance and advice to the department on individual's choice if placement is unsuccessful, and the provision of a safety net for the individual and or other options available to the individual and the family. So basically, you know, if a person decides to move forward into an employment option and it doesn't work out for one reason or another, you know, I've heard talk about holding a placement open for a number of months to make sure that it becomes available, or the individual could move back into the current placement. But what else is out there that we could possibly do if the placement is unsuccessful? Beth?
Beth Fisher from CUNY. Keith, I want to just clarify to be sure I understand what you're saying. You know, if it's a competitive job placement, it's not our decision if that position can be held open. That's up to the employer. So I'm not sure I understand what your point was.
Oh, I'm sorry. If the person moved out of a DSO and moved into into an employment situation, that
Thank you.
that would remain open for a few months. So if it didn't work out, they'd be able to move back in the DSO.
If I could just, again, Beth Fisher from CUNY. I mean, I think that as providers, we would do that to the best of our ability. But, you know, if we have a waiting list or there's, you know, staffing ratio issues, you know, I would be reluctant to say we could guarantee that.
Keith Lavalette, DDS, and yes, I understood that with that, but you know, with the Arpa initiative, there is that few months that you're getting paid for the individual to move, and then I think it's that 4-month period. I don't have the notes in front of me, but but then what happens if you don't have the space available? You know, what other options could be available? I mean, there's other programs that they could move to, but if they've been, for example, with CUNY for a number of years, and you had no openings, you know, what other options could be available is what I'm trying to.
Well, speaking for CUNY, I mean, we would make every effort to find a spot for them somewhere. But the other thing is that if a job doesn't work out, it doesn't mean that they've got to go back to GSE or a DSO. It might mean that we learn from our mistakes and we just go right back into a job search.
Yes, Keith Lavalette, DDS. And what this question involves is what else is there out there that is possible? Another job search, going back to another program, going to another job search or another program within the agency, moving out of an agency. You know, we just want to hear from people on potential and what would help make a family more comfortable in making the determination to move forward. Any other thoughts on that? Beth, your hand is raised. Is it? Okay, Jennifer?
Yeah, I mean, as a provider, obviously, like Beth, we would do whatever we could to bring them back into our program. Obviously, there's other skills training if they need to kind of take a step back and do some more training. Assessments, training, assistive technology assessments, and the like. But from a family perspective, I would think it would be good to know there's some backup, some sort of maybe like temporary, I don't want to call it respite, but maybe, some in-home or respite option. As a family member, if there was no place for me, if I have to leave my job, to be home with, my family member, that's not good for me either. So I don't want to take that risk. I'd rather them just not go to work. But if they go to work and it doesn't work out and then I've got no place for them, that's a challenge. So if there was some sort of respite or something that could bridge that gap, or private hire, increasing the private, because one of the things that we didn't talk about as a potential barrier is staff availability.
Right.
I think we have to add that back to that list and make sure that it's on there, because there are fewer people to provide those supports than there were in the past. So.
Good point. Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Our next meeting is officially October 25th. And then after that, it will be the 1st and 3rd of the month. Just so everybody knows, I did this once already. What I need to do is Teams won't allow me to send a 1st and 3rd meeting out. I have to send the first out, and then I have to send another Teams update out for the 3rd week. So you will all be receiving 2 Teams notices that you would need to accept. And at that note, thank you, everybody, and we'll see you on the 25th.
Oh, Keith, I think
Thank you.
Beth had something to say.
Oh,
This
I'm
is Sean.
sorry. I'm sorry.
Thank you,
Beth,
Sean.
go
Beth
ahead.
Fisher. Yeah, I just put the note in for Trevor that we couldn't access that, so I see he put another link in. So thank you for that.
Can you give me a second to grab the link? This is Jennifer from UCP before you sign us all off.
Yeah.
Oh, sure. Go right ahead.
Thank
I
you.
can stay on
Yeah,
as,
and
Yes, thank you.
Trevor Rogers, Tradition Advisor. Sorry about that. I think I shared the link to my original, not the website link. I believe the second one I sent is the one link to our website.
It works. Yes, the
Okay,
second.
I'm also gonna send a link of the Operations Center memo I talked about as well, just so everyone has access. But I did just send the PowerPoint to Keith, and I linked both of these in there so that he can send it out with the minutes.
Keith Lavalette, DDS. Thank you, Trevor. Is everybody all set at retrieving the link, and are we all set to sign off? All right, thank you, everybody.